out on my boogers. Oh, and that was caught in the live stream. Wow, we're off to a fantastic start.
Well, that's our
Uh,
one like soft curse for this panel, isn't it?
that's right, you boogers. Okay. Um, let's.
Oh, boogers.
How do I share this broadcast? I need a link. I can. Oh wait, if I do this,
I'm supposed to know how to do this, but I don't remember.
I right clicked on view on YouTube to get a link to the link address. Yeah.
Yeah, that should be all that we. That should be all that you need. Yeah.
Oh, yep. Oh, there's almost a echo there. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to share this to the workshop channel. Oh, there's our beautiful faces. Fabulous. And I will share the link to the Google Doc in our public streaming chat, which is under the comments tab, not the private chat tab, which looks very similar. Cool. Okay. Yes. So if you're not familiar with Storm Riders, you know what? Beep, beep, put on the brakes. We need to introduce our fabulous participants. My name is Michael. I use he, him pronouns, and I designed a game called Storm Riders that was inspired by World of Dungeons, which was inspired by Dungeon World, which yada, and so forth and so on. And I'm very excited to play this exercise with everyone today. I shared a Twitter poll earlier where people got to vote for the show knockoff that they would be most interested in seeing adapted to use with something like Storm Riders. And our winner was Captain Climate. They're our hero. So I would like to go from left to right here and introduce each person who's joining me today. Greg, can we start with you?
Certainly. I'm Greg Gelder, also he, him pronouns. I am a Storm Riders enthusiast. I played in a holiday-themed version of it once upon a time. Super love the commercial breaks, and I super love the stories you get out of the game with its awesome cartoonness. So I'm looking forward to this a lot.
Yay, and I am River. I have run Storm Riders a couple times. Every time I've run it, there's been children at the table, which is not actually does not actually go as well as you would think it would, because they don't seem to quite understand the tropes. And they're used to modern day kids cartoons, which are allowed to show things like violence and stuff like that.
I get that. Yeah, that would be an interesting game. Like, what do you mean I can't make them bleed like Batman does?
It's fascinating that you need that sort of meta level narrative that kids don't always quite have yet to play the game. That's very cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I look at the different little gears they're going on with Storm Riders, one of them is definitely that meta narrative. And I think that that is also something that can be tweaked to serve a different purpose if we think that that meta narrative is something that should exist in another place. Like, for example, if we're doing a Power Rangers type thing, instead of having it be audience members, it could be, hey, what's it like in their actual lives, without their costumes on. So when we think about a Captain Climate-esque show, how do you think we could leverage that meta narrative? Do you think it would be just good in its own way, where kids are inspired to try to help the environment based on the show, or something else?
I mean, you could always tie it to a real life, quote unquote, real life, like climate disaster is happening at the same time as this show. or in a more modern sense, and then this is a show that harkens back to it. I don't know if that would sort of damage the more lightheartedness that Storm Riders has, but it's a thought.
You seem to be gathering your thoughts, River.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm not as awake as I should be for 2 in the afternoon. Let me see here. I mean, one of the ways I think that we can definitely change some of the meta narrative is instead of having just commercials, also have a PSA, like a have somebody do a little freeform PSA in there, because that was always in things like GI Joe and the Planeteers, and and things like that.
We should definitely make a note about that. I'm going to go ahead and add my name as a participant here before we move on. But yeah, let's put a note here about the meta narrative. I'm just going to do a little bullet point. PSAs. Who doesn't love a good PSA? Yeah, so I actually watched a couple episodes of Captain Planet again just to refresh myself, get myself back in that headspace before today. And I noticed that it follows some of the same setup as other 80s cartoon shows that I watched and researched in preparation for Storm Riders. And in Storm Riders, there's this sort of suggested framework for GMs where you start the show off with a villainous monologue, and then you cut to the main characters, and one of them is having some sort of a personal problem. And then you go save the day and try to deal with your personal issue as well. And I saw with Captain Planet, it kind of matched that framework pretty well. So I think we could do something like that still with this structure here. But the big difference I see with Captain Planet is we're looking at real life kids with a magic ring, as opposed to well, they're still cartoon children, not real life children, but they're not like mutants and wizards and things like that.
I also, if memory serves, like Captain Planet and the Planeteers is one of the few shows that actually had teenagers as the animated stars and not like younger children. That was still aimed at those age groups. Maybe there was a sort of a context there of like the teenagers are role models for younger children, whereas all of the adults were the bad guys, and like there was always kids that needed help from the Planeteers. I seem to remember some of those plots being in there. I'm digging way back into the archives for this.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was surprised when I looked back at it, like how many episodes there were. It went on for like 6 years or seasons or something like that. There's like over 100 episodes. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to watch all of those. I got to it, but I definitely think you're right. Yeah, it's Guy has her driver's license, and they're definitely trying to help kids out. So that's an interesting idea.
It kind of airs into that Johnny Quest-esque teen. They deal with problems that are maybe a little bit more adult, but it's still very much a kid-friendly show, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I watched Captain Planet. I was trying to find little clips of it, but copyrights and all that locked it down pretty hard.
And you had mentioned before we started this stream, Greg, you'd been looking at the TV tropes for Captain Planet, which is always a great resource. And you were talking about some of that more mature subject matter, dealing with things like drug addiction. I know stigma around HIV and AIDS was focused on in one episode. So I think that that's probably going to affect our broadcast standards and practices for this show. And I mean, part of it is we're moving into the 90s in terms of the oeuvre of cartoons. You're starting to see shows like Gargoyles. That was kind of a dark show, right? And sort of pushing the envelope a little bit on what kind of content you can get away with. So I think that is something to keep in mind as we move forward. Is that like we're dealing with teenagers now. We're dealing with real world climate disaster as opposed to like, man, my room's getting messy or whatever, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. One sticking point I have in my mind moving forward, though, is the concept of classes. So we don't necessarily need to like totally emulate Captain Planet for our game. But we could have the kids transform into elements, but I definitely think that idea of elements and then them combining is what's interesting, in terms of like how you would differentiate individual characters, how you would categorize them, sort them. Yeah, so when we're thinking about making a class, are we thinking about making an element? Or are we thinking about making like a personality trait, a job or a role? Anything sticking out in your folks' minds when it comes to that?
I just listed the ones that were in the canonical version, so maybe we can display that in a lower bit there. But the one of the things to really think about with the elements is that you're not necessarily going to have 5 players. So maybe something that's a bit more freeform with the elements, because we all know that episode where they try to form Captain Planet without heart, and he's just a serious a-hole. So that's like an important thing to consider. Like your elemental mixes should be whole, even if you don't have, 5 players.
I'm curious if you do more of a class as more of a personality, like the wild card or the jock or the diva. I don't know, things along those lines, sort of a more personality tropes, and then as a bonus, you actually pick an element that you are associated with, some sort of nature force that you control,
I
and then you have
believe
the
I believe the official term is Ruski Tutski.
What?
never heard of that, but but I think it would be fun to be like I am like the rebel character, but I choose stone. And what is that? That dichotomy, that difference in choice there. What does that mean? And then you also have the ability of we have a Captain Planet-esque character. That summoning Captain Planet, I think, is another thing we're gonna have to like get to, because that is a slight difference, at least in my mind, from Storm Riders. Like that, all the characters combine into one, or put their efforts into one thing at the climax of the story. That's maybe after this discussion, but I think it would be interesting to do like personality as class, and then an element is a choice you make.
Yeah, I like that too, especially because when you look at other like ensemble shows that require everyone to be there, like Power Rangers and um, Voltron, like what is it like when everyone's basically a rider? What is it like when X, Y, and Z? And so I'm sure Voltron was on the list of potentials, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. I actually missed the poll completely.
I voted for the Transformers Voltron one.
Yeah, that was a Goropo Incognito. Yeah,
Sung by Styx.
right? Yeah, I am really excited about working together with you all on that sort of combination mechanic, because I think that there's a lot of shows that enjoy and employ that element. So I think having that would just be a fun resource for anybody who likes Storm Riders. That they could kind of use that as a framework for adapting it to Voltron or the Megazord or what have you.
Yeah, that's yeah. If we get nothing else out of this, if that's all the further we get is 3 hours of debating over how do we do like a tight ensemble team sort of thing, then it will have been time well spent.
Wow, it's like we actually have to come together to form Voltron in order to learn how to form Voltron. That's exciting. Okay. Yeah, I agree with your reasoning as far as archetypes go, and I think we could use the thing mechanic. I'm using the official capital T thing here for elements. Being very freeform. Whatever element you think would be cool, you can have. That could be earth, wind, fire, water, stone, plant, storms, lightning.
Or land, sea, air. That's another one if you just have 3.
Yeah, and then you throw in something like heart, and that can that really opens the door. And it could be something even like Green Lantern, how they have like the different like emotions are tied to each of their ring colors. So
I control light. Light's a cool thing.
And I control darkness, and you have the cloak and dagger duo if you have 2 players. That sort of thing.
Starfire and Raven.
Yes. So we have 3 of us today who can start contributing classes. When we talk about these like tropes, I guess, like jock and diva or actress or singer or theater kids, are we going with like high school cliques? Are we going with another way to categorize teenagers?
I do not like the clique thing. As the very obviously queer and neuroatypical kid in high school, the cliques just makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, let's avoid those. So let's think of some more positive alternatives that maybe don't have so many critical kind of baggage that go along with them, right? Like even going with something like jock, we could probably go with something like active or something along those lines without having to say like when you say jock, you think like, oh, dumb or mean spirited or misogynistic. Like we don't necessarily need to go with all that baggage. We say active, it's like, okay.
I think to some degree, the ensemble casts sort of thrive when each character represents a particular approach to solving a problem. So maybe it's more personality by way of approach. Like there's the unconventional, someone who thinks outside the box. There's the direct, someone who always goes for the what's the straight shooting course of action for this. There's the charismatic or the negotiator, someone who always is trying to negotiate a solution. And then in a sort of Star Trek-esque, the greater discussion between those characters about what the right way to do this problem would be.
Right. One of the things that pops into my head, well, the first thing that popped into my head was when we were talking about the active, was the bull from Masks, which then got me thinking, it's like, well, if we're using animals as a reference, you could have rabbit as like the face. You could have like the panther being the one who's more underhanded and careful and more like wait and see. And Michael, you are smiling really hard.
Collaboration is amazing. Oh man, y'all are popping off. I'm here for it.
So, do we want to do that? Do we want to do like animal-centric archetypes? Just because, and it's also fun because that's also somewhat exportable. Like our bull is not necessarily the same as as a Chinese person's bull, and like we don't clamp down nearly as hard as we do with like the active or the whatever.
And then secretly, they could also be your robot form for the conversion.
Double prizes.
100%.
So, our task now individually is to think of an animal that represents.
Could they all be endangered animals?
They should definitely be endangered animals. Got to pull up Wikipedia for that. An endangered species that you think you could sort of tie to an approach towards climate justice, environmentalism, action, things like that. So let's go ahead and pull up the list of endangered animal species. I have a feeling if I just look at these, like I'll see some hummingbird and be like, "Oh, that could be an approach."
Manatee.
Oh,
Manatee seems like the passive, the more, yeah.
Yeah, that's a candidate for sure.
I don't know if passive is a great way to run a character. You'd have to make that interesting in some way. I'm trying to think what the characters from Cat Planet. It's been a long time. I mean, would the heart? I forget their name. Would that be more manatee?
That was Mati.
Mati. Okay.
I mean, the Mati or the manatee is the queen of the sea. I don't know. There could be something there. I'm almost thinking about maybe doing a rhino because you're talking about that direct kind of person.
Yeah, rhino would be a very fun archetype for the direct person.
All right, I'm gonna stake my claim on the rhino.
This is also a little depressing because you keep finding out about things that are actually endangered. Like apparently a bunch of orangutans are endangered. Red
pandas are endangered. Who knew?
Oh, that's sad. Bonobos are endangered? No, not the bonobos.
Would the macaw is apparently endangered. Would that be our more charismatic pruning?
I definitely love the idea of a macaw being like the face. That's pretty fun.
And now, everyone, 15 minutes of us staring at Google. No.
Yeah, but we should continue.
No. I think it's fun. So what I'm also seeing. I mean, I'm sure we're all probably looking at a very similar Google search here. We've certainly got, if we want to have a little more variety, we have like a sea. We have what do we do? Manatee, rhino, and what else?
Oh, we got tigers coming out our ears on the list.
Yeah, there's a lot. We should probably have a big cat. I want to do something in like an aerial animal. There's a lot of endangered birds. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, of course, the macaw. Sorry, it's just not on the list. Adding the macaw.
Yeah, definitely like the macaw on the list. I think a good, like, I don't know. I kind of want to put in one that's just really off the wall a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Like, something that's like from a super limited climate, like a polar bear or, something like that. I also want to call a Kaibash and the giant panda. They're very cute, but I kind of had enough of pandas. Enough of pandas, enough of dolphins.
Yeah, I think there's enough awareness that pandas are endangered.
Yeah.
There's the pangolin.
The pangolin is wonderful and needs more attention, so I'm behind that. I will never say no to a pangolin showing up in a game.
I feel so bad about this black-footed ferret.
The ferret could be also an interesting archetype, though.
Very much.
It also guarantees that Ferret will put this on the calendar at some point.
True.
Well, I'm sold then.
I'm also surprised to see sea lions on there. That was one I didn't know was endangered. I love sea lions. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the rhino.
Critically endangered.
Coral.
Coral. It is technically an animal.
That would be a real trippy one.
Oh, that would be a good out there one, yes.
I think you were muted there, River.
I keep forgetting what I do and don't have my microphone muted. How ironic.
Well, I think our next task then would be to look at one of these endangered species and say, how would the rhino try to tackle this issue of climate change or environmental disaster? How would the macaw, have tried to do that sort of thing? So because I'm not nearly as creative as you folks as it's sounding, I'm going to go with the rhino, the very straightforward, head-on kind of approach to.
I'm going to pick up the heart ring here and just say you're the one that wrote this game. So you're clearly very creative.
Fair enough. But yeah, I think I will design for our exercise today the rhino class. So take all the time you need to think which of these species and approaches really resonates with you the strongest, so we can do that together.
I think you're muted, River. If you were saying something.
Oh, I was just making thinking noises that don't need to be recorded at all. I make a lot of clicks and pops and things like that when I think.
That's all good. So we're going to collectively do the rhino? Is that what you were saying, Michael?
No. So I will kind of. I mean, I'll probably ask for some input from you folks.
Okay.
Like, do you have any ideas for this particular move? Okay. But I was thinking we could try to follow that class toolbook, which is found in this month's Codex Childhood in the Heroes of Alternia expansion. So I put a little template under the rhino for those 4 types of abilities that you could use for your World of Dungeons, PBTA, as broad as you might be able to apply them. And then I think what we'll do is we'll each fill out 4 moves or abilities related to that class that helps to define who that class is and what they do. And we can use that toolbox to kind of be our structure for that. And I'll say, since this seems to be a very contemplative time, and we've already been. I guess it's only been 30 minutes. I thought it was an hour and a half. I was like, oh man. If we want to take a quick 5-minute break, this might be a decent time to do that. Does anybody need a quick little break to coordinate their thoughts and let everything congeal a bit? That would be good for me.
That would be good for me as too. Like that way I can read the redeemed real quick and
Yeah,
like start to get an idea of how to spin this.
let's do it. Back in 5 minutes. That'll be 40 minutes on the hour.
This is so much fun. People should be following along at home on the sheet.
Yeah, I wonder if we should switch over to the sheet view.
Ooh, let me see.
Because our faces are a lot less interesting than they were 5 minutes ago.
Let me see if I can get the share screen thing to work here. Oh,
Yeah.
these two monitors.
I can try that out real quick, unless you get a fancy monitor situation.
Kind of. Let me see. Let me go over here.
About to have some infinity here.
Whoa.
Whoa. Application window. Chrome tab. Oh, one tab.
Oh, hey. Yeah, I like that. Did I do that?
I think that's on me.
That's you. Okay, cool.
Or it could
I'm
just be
still here too.
StreamYard. Whichever. I love it.
Yes.
So I'm doing the macaw.
I'm going to scroll down to look at the macaw.
I have not really started, but
I'm going to scroll back up.
reading up on the macaw, and they are zygodactyl, which has to be a move. That means that their two claws are in front, and then they have two claws in back.
Oh,
Zygodactyl.
right. That's right. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
they got weird looking.
They got weird feet, and it's totally going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I came up with something for the manatee since it's on the screen right now. You can just talk about it. So I looked at for those of you at home, should take a look at Codex Childhood to see, oh, this is the stuff we're talking about. So I thought that having a limitation of needing to touch water was an interesting thing. So, but this means that like this character can gain insight from the from like runoff or from pipes that are flooding out of a factory and things like that. It's powerful, but also fairly limited. And the rationale behind it is, of course, that all aquatic animals are super sensitive to pH and minerality and all these different things that are in the water. It's one of the things that we study when we study water are those chemicals. The other thing that we study are indicator organisms, which are necessary for a healthy ecosystem. And when they die off, that's an indication that something is going wrong. There are also indicator species in the other direction, which indicate an unhealthy environment, like jellyfish. Or like a bunch of jellyfish is usually an indication that something is well out of balance. And I know this because I'm a member of the National Aquarium. Plug for that.
That is so awesome, River, and I love how you've sort of translated that into dealing with feelings and memories and being sensitive to that sort of current that travels through people and social life. So you're thinking, though, that in order to use this power, they need to be touching water? Was that what you were thinking?
Yes, exactly. Maybe that should be more explicit in the rule.
So were you imagining, like, if I'm the manatee and I touch a river, I can feel the memories and feelings from people who've been in that river, like almost like a psychometric kind of ability?
Right. It definitely had a psychometric bent, but I want to say it's more like things that happened fairly recently. Like if, you would know that the salmon had been by here because they're still upstream, for instance. You would know that there was, still a lot of sediment in the water from a recent storm, or that, things like that is because, unless you find like an eddy, you're not necessarily going to find water that's been there for a little while. So it's also very fluid in that regard. And of course, once you get out into something like the unless you really do find a stream that can lead you back to something, that you can find a particular current and just like trailing your hand through the water, you're not necessarily going to find a lead in there. But it definitely does still give you some leverage for something like that if you're really out on a limb. The out on a limb seems like more the Macaw's thing.
Very good. I love that move, though. I think that that's great, and I think that that's an awesome segue to look at Greg's work with a zygodactyl move here.
So I was thinking that the macaw we were sort of thinking as sort of the charismatic one. And so I went with zygodactyl, where once per session you can invoke someone else's ability. You must be touching them, and the GM will tell you how that effect is limited. So it allows you to do someone else's thing, but you can't do it as well as they can do it. It's sort of sidekick-esque from the original Storm Riders. I'm open to a little tweaking on it. My thought process was as the macaw, you are a little more mimicry. Actually, my aim to prove their superiority is not probably what I'm going to aim with. I sort of see it as like a desire to fit in or a desire to be accepted in the group. Aim to prove their place in this group, their worthiness in the group. I don't know if that bleeds into a character trouble for establishing the beginning of the game, but right now we'll run with this. So yeah, they can do someone else's thing, but they can't always do it as well as they can do it. So if your manatee goes down, they can be holding the manatee's hand and help them. Maybe that should be more of a helping thing. I forget in Storm Riders if there's an explicit aid and interfere kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't really think there is.
So, okay, so
This is a great
this.
opportunity.
When you're holding someone's hand, they roll with advantage when using one of their abilities.
Yes, I love that sort of thing. I like the sense of touch that we're getting from these characters. That's a cool theme that's kind of running through everything. I get the idea of zygodactyl, like you have like claws on front and back, and also that grip. But I see where you're coming from with the macaw and their ability to like mimic. I think that could possibly be another move in there. Maybe something like Attempt the Extraordinary or something could be. You can like mimic any sound you hear or something like that.
I think it's very kids show-esque, where they like, they can they put on the guard's costume or whatever to sneak into the bad guy base, and the macaw is able to like perfectly pull off the voice or whatever.
What's the password? I love pollution. Cool. Awesome. Well, while you work on that, I'm going to think about the rhino. I think the rhino, they're going to have a move about sabotage. But I wonder if I want to say the rhino is better at sabotage, or the rhino can like should the manatee be able to sabotage things? Probably. So should the macaw. But the rhino can do it a bit more explosively.
I was about to say, there's like sabotage, and then there's like sabotage. There's, carefully like filing down some things so that they break. So then there's like throwing a wooden shoe into the mechanism.
Yes. And then there's like lifting up the bulldozer.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, so that kind of takes it out of the realm of sabotage and into the realm of like wreckage. Wrecking ball, that's a good word for it.
That is a good term for it.
Yeah, Wrecking Ball.
What stats are we using? Are we still using, what is it, power, heart, and
Mind.
mind?
That's another great question.
Hmm.
How do y'all feel?
I don't
think
have a
would still
compelling
work.
reason to change
Yeah.
it at this point. But I'm gonna note it on the top there. So correct me if I'm wrong, but did each of the Planeteers tend to use their powers in a way that was like very in line with their personalities? Like I know like Heart was definitely like, the hearts and minds, like talking to other animals, things like that. But trying to remember like how that was correlated with the other powers.
In my vague memory is yes, but Michael has watched it a lot more recently.
So, are you asking if like the manifestation of their powers lined up with their personalities?
Yeah, because like in Airbender, like Toph's form of earthbending is very aggressive. It's very in your face, smashy, smashy, break things. Whereas other earthbenders weren't like that. Other Zuko, for instance, flipping it around, was a much more cautious firebender than most of his compatriots.
I bet at some point they did like a kids swap the rings episode.
Yeah, that sounds likely.
But I mean I remember like a little bit. So like Wheeler is the fire bearer, and he's this New York kid, and he's a little bit more impetuous and patient, and catches things on fire accidentally more than other people.
Right.
And then like the level-headed water bearer would have to come in and like uh fix things, and soothe things. So that's definitely possible.
Hmm.
So where were you going with that idea though, River? I feel like that's a that's rolling up for something bigger.
Right. I'm just trying to think of like, are the rings more like a thing or are they more like their own thing? And if they are their own thing, what do they take the place of? Like, is the rhino's ring more of a state the fact sort of power or tip the scale sort of power? Like basically that, like, does the archetype include how we approach our powers? Like I could have the manatee, for instance, their ring's power could be to um, transfer hot points between people or to like yeah, it's like
Having
I'm trying to think of
a more defined mechanical effect rather than the standard
right,
advantage that you gain just from using a thing in general. Like we just want it to be
exactly.
anytime you summon your element, whatever you're trying to do with it, however you want to describe it, it's more likely to succeed. And
Yeah.
then once you've used up your ring's power, you need to have a refresh scene, and then you can bend those elements again. Or we want to say the rhino's ring is sort of maybe in this category of elements, right? And this is what the
Hmm.
rhino's ring can do. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm personally leaning a bit more towards leaving the elements very vague and up to whoever, and just having that kind of generic effect mechanically, and having like that ability to transfer hot points be something more related to a class or archetype.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me. I am but one man in this Triforce.
Oh, jeez. That's not good. Oh God, what am I the Triforce of? I'm not the Triforce of Wisdom. Wisdom's my dump stat. So I have a question about the macaw, real quick. So
Yeah.
you say perfect parrot. During any scene with a bad guy present, you can always appear disguised as a henchman. So that just means that you can show up in a scene where the bad guy would reasonably have a henchman, whether that's
Yeah.
like if they've captured the good guys or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because that's a fun one.
Yeah, I was sort of going for I forget which Apocalypse World class it is, where you can always there's powers where you can like choose. There's certain abilities where you can like choose to be present in a scene.
Yeah, the spell
Um,
has something like that, where
yeah, I think a
the
Gunlugger has
leader could
something
just
or something like you could appear in any firefight or something.
right.
So I was going for that. My experience with Storm Riders is that there's usually like scenes where like the big bad is eminently present, and then the ability to like show up as one of the henchmen instead, or like be behind them suddenly. That's sort of what I was going for there. Was the ability to just maybe then they're monologuing like secretly the macaw is there and they hear it.
Turn
That kind
around the
of
corner
thing.
and pull off your mask and say, I can't believe that's what they're planning.
That's the idea.
Yeah, I like it, especially since these shows don't always follow an exact logic to them, So to have you show up, it's like, well, they just did during the commercial.
Ooh, I like what you're adding there, River.
Yeah, I was pulling up the Wikipedia page for macaw, and they have a number. They apparently have frequently are able to eat things that are toxic to other creatures.
I was also looking at they're mostly becoming extinct due to deforestation. So I was going to go for something about like a home turf kind of thing that like on their
Hmm.
home turf, or yeah, that might be their tip of the scales. But I like their attempt at extraordinary toxic substances. I'm going to work off of that.
So the way I went ahead and defined the Rhino's Wrecking Ball move, I'd love some feedback on this. This text just says you can break down, destroy, or otherwise wreck anything and come out unscathed. Your surroundings, not so much. So I'm
And bars lift
wondering,
gates. Love it.
yeah, is that like implying enough that like you'll probably still need to roll for this and like the results will probably still have complications, but at least it won't affect you directly. What do you think?
It reminds me a bit of I forget the class in Hearts of Wulin. I think it's the unconventional, where you can like punch through a wall. Is like, pretty sure that's sort of the implication. At least that's how it played out in the game I played. I think there should be something in there that, yeah, there it is, and otherwise wreck anything. Because I think fictionally, And that may be tied more to their power.
Yeah,
Like
we could
no
say
matter
it's,
what, their power can do it, but it won't always be clean.
yeah, we could also say wreck something important to the bad guys, like, you know, an earth mover or a defensive like fortification or something like that. Because anything seems like we're introducing like the ability to just like push down a building on top of somebody.
I like that important to the bad guy. Yeah.
The tool, yes. You can break down, destroy, or otherwise wreck the tools of villainy and come out unscratched.
Should it
But
put another player in a spot? Does that create like a feedback loop? I'm trying to think of like Captain Planet cartoon-esque things where, you know, they do it and they succeed, but of course it complicates it.
Right.
I don't
There's
know. I
got
guess
to be.
that becomes a role thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's built into it. But now I have an idea for the pangolin. For attempt the extraordinary, which is that they can get somebody through danger. They can like carry one person through danger once a session.
I love it. I love it so much.
Like they can. And I'm gonna name it roll out because I am an absolute like freaking Transformers nerd.
So I'm thinking that like pollution, as part of that villainous monologue, like we're gonna establish like whatever that session's overarching pollution would be, whether it's like an oil spill or like a chemical plant spill. My mind is stuck on spilled chemicals. I don't know why, but that's where it's at.
It's pretty
Um,
classic for
It is.
for
It is. So I'm trying to think of like if because I'm calling it blue throat. That's a name for the macaws. If it's something like you can, like you can interact with the pollution, or some sort of, I forget the harm rules. If there's some sort of tweak I can do to the harm rules for the macaw when specifically in the context of dealing with pollution. Like when you would take harm from pollution instead, you know, let me think about that one more.
That's a good point. Bringing up the concept of harm. With this more mature subject matter, we're seeing these teens be exposed to things a little bit more dire than maybe other cartoons, right? I've seen them like coughing in smoke, but I don't know if we actually see them really come to harm a lot if they're getting punched.
Yeah, they can tend to be like something can happen, like a tree can fall in front of them and they'll be like knocked to the ground from the force of the impact, or they've been like locked in dangerous situations before, but it's a lot of imminent danger and not so much like physical harm. Although I think they did get choked up by smoke once.
Yeah.
Which is
So it
for
sounds like
people who aren't for people who aren't cartoon characters, it's extremely debilitating frequently for the rest of your life if you get knocked out from smoke inhalation.
Sheesh, I can't even begin to imagine.
My father is a
yeah. Go ahead.
My father's a safety engineer, so he has all sorts of stories. There are many, many reasons why the environment became very, very important to me. But yeah, through all of my childhood, my father was a safety director for hazardous waste cleanup. Yeah.
My father was in charge of safety for a railroad. So
okay. So
my dad was a lawyer.
we can just pretend that your dad was like an environmental lawyer then, right?
Greg, what was that thought that you had a minute ago?
Yeah, so I was thinking that it's more like it sounds what I'm thinking is actually sounds more like a state of fact type power, but I'm thinking of something along the lines of when you encounter pollution, um, some sort of ability to clean it up, or which I don't know if that just negates the whole narrative, right? Like the macaw shows up and then it's all cleaned up and everything's fine. So it has to be more complicated than that. But something related to that, or maybe.
Tell me a bit more about the blue throat aspect you were saying. How that kind of applies.
River pointed out that macaws can ingest a lot of toxins, and it doesn't
Right.
affect them. Or maybe it's not literal toxins. Maybe it's they can really take it when the bad guy dishes it out, as far as like insults or something. I don't know. Keep thinking about that. Or I'll keep thinking because I also had another one for tip the scales, which was the territory one. So I'm gonna go with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Put this on the back of my mind. I'll come back.
I really want to do a tip the scales for a pangolin that says mighty good grub, where if you invite someone who is like a minion or only tenuously loyal to the villain to a meal, it will succeed and they'll talk with you about things like once per session. It's like a super like roundabout way about it because pangolin are insectivores. They frequently seek out termites and ants and things like that.
I like that move.
Okay. I was wondering if the pun might be a bit much.
No, I love it. It gives me very Lion King vibes of like, ooh, check out this juicy grub.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Since I'm always in the other window, I'm like leaving my microphone on. I'm sorry for the key clacks if they're coming across. The peril and wonders of a mechanical keyboard.
So I think for the rhino, the state of fact is going to be inspired by the barbarian from Dungeon World. They have this move where they can ask like, what here is like weak or vulnerable. And I think that would be a fun thing for the rhino to get to say like, oh hey, there's like there's a fracture in the dam or something. There's a crack in this tree that you could probably fawns over or whatever.
I might put that on the ferret because then you get cross playbook interactions.
Tell me more.
Because one of the ways you use the word ferret is like you ferret out weaknesses or ferret out some facts. So like if the ferret, you could have something like the ferret can skip a scene to find out what is like how something is vulnerable to you or something like that, or I don't know, like spend a hot point to gain information about a critical weakness in the enemy's plans or something.
I like your idea of trying to make moves that like coordinate with other playbooks. You know, like the parrot can, or the ferret can use that move to kind of set up the rhino. So I'm definitely going to be thinking about moves I can make that set up the manatee and the macaw. Like, how could I get the manatee in a place where they could use their hydro empathy power or something like that?
Yeah, that's where I have. That's also why I did roll out for the pangolin where you can use your environmental tools or your determination to pull a person through danger. Like that seems like a really good thing to do to like infiltrate with the rhino or something like that.
Wow, I thought you were only working on one. Then I scrolled down, see you've got two more under your belt. That's pretty awesome.
I just sort of come up like I tend to go broad and like dip down and not go deep first. I My ideas tend to bounce back and forth a lot.
If you have the bandwidth for it, I'm here for it.
Oh,
So
it's more like the best way to get me to focus on something is to try to work on something else. So
I'm excited for this. So I'm thinking like the elemental rings. I don't know if we're tied necessarily to like that particular um, shape.
yeah,
Like, do they have to be rings?
they
So
could be
I just put it
pendants.
as yeah. So I put as the macaw for your thing. I think your thing possibly is always going to be tied to your element or whatever. But for the macaw, it's your totem comes from your favorite grandparent. What did it guide them through?
Oh, that's really good.
So I think it would be cool if the characters all like their thing question revolves around their totem and where they got it or who gave it to them or the history behind it or like you don't know where it came from or that kind of thing.
I just
Love
don't
it.
necessarily want to call it totem though.
That's fine.
But totem is gotten well, totem went all over the place. Like
so
a totem can
your
be like a bauble, or it can be like a spirit, or it can be. This
right,
is what happens when words like bounce all the
right.
way to Europe and back
The
before
magic
they.
of words. Focus or your
So when you say
I like
totem,
focus.
focus.
were you referring to the
Uh,
animal or the element?
I imagine that like whatever element you control, you have something like the ring from Captain Planet that serves as a I think River and I both like focus
Hmm.
for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I like that. Your focus comes from your favorite grandparent.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have like a macaw feather or a bird-shaped
It could be, and
icon.
if that's what you got from your favorite grandparent.
Okay, but it could also be like a wind a marble that looks like a tornado or something. So, okay, yeah, focus I think is a great term for that. I'm all for like slightly detaching from Captain Planet to be able to let people do their own cool take on things.
Stormrunners doesn't have like fully formed PBTA moves, right? Not really. Okay. It's all just reliant on rolling plus a particular stat.
Yeah. So the core resolution mechanic is 2d6 scale from 0 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12. I think it might also have like critical. I, I don't even remember. I think that's sort of something that's implied in World of Dungeons, but I don't know if I made that a big deal. But your thing, which in this case is probably going to be our focus, basically bumps up the success of whatever you rolled. So if you rolled a 6, you technically got a 7. If you rolled a 9, you technically got a 12, sort of thing. Because you had like an idea for like a move that would work with the full fictional trigger kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. With I decided to make Blue Throat more of a address a crowd sort of leader type role, sort of. And I was trying to like, when you address a crowd, name what you would like them to do, then roll plus. So I'll tweak that slightly.
Oh man, I just remembered something about ferrets. They're actually somewhat nearly related to to things like skunks, and they do actually have like a musk that they can spray, at least if memory serves. So I'm just imagining like giving them the ability to clear a room would be awesome. And now Hakuna Matata is playing in my head.
So the rhino, they've got this thick skin, they've got this armor. It could be as simple as giving them bonus hot points, or some kind of shield there. But is that a little too boring? When I say, oh, hey, you can be a rhino and they have more hot points, like, are y'all snoozing over that, or what do you think?
I think. Oh, River, you're muted.
I think the bonus hot points is a very, very easy one. I've also seen people to be who are very, very happy when they roll a 1 on their hot points, just like, well, that's what I'm taking for the first session. Screw it. I'm just gonna increase my hot points by 6. Does it also increase their maximum hot points? I don't.
Usually, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that came up. I was like, well, yeah, it wouldn't make sense for it to like only give them temporary hot points. That seems weird.
Yeah.
Or can it be more like you can take the hot points damage for someone?
That's always fun too.
You can take the hit for somebody. That leans into the to take direct action, heedless of consequences. Maybe that's more fitted for the manatee, honestly, because their aim is to reduce harm. Maybe they are the ones more willing to take the hot point damage for someone else.
That's true.
So
And they kind
I
of
do
have
like
thick skin too.
Thick skin is a good name for something for the rhino, of course.
It's a very minimalist game. It doesn't necessarily need a bunch. So having something like, here's 6 extra maximum and current hit points to start off with, like, there you go. I think I might just go with 4 though instead of 6. 6 feels like a lot.
I am open to any ideas on how to address the macaw's ability to sway the hearts and minds of crowds. Is that more of a tip the scales? Is that more of an attempting the extraordinary? Like the idea is it's something only that character can do. I guess maybe it's more of a tip the scales thing. It's that it gives you an advantage when you do that. Maybe when you act at the group.
I like what you're thinking and where you're going. It brings to mind like the warrior has this move from Storm Riders where like if you shout your battle cry at the start of a fight, you get +1. And so it sort of is trying to like inspire the player to like say this sort of like semi-ridiculous statement and to enhance the fun that way. And I like the idea of someone being like, let's lead this like very inspiring message, and encouraging the player to like kind of direct their character to do that. So we want to give them some sort of reward for engaging with the character that way, which usually means success. Tends to be the
or
reward.
Is this the sidekick crack a pun move? Isn't that one of the sidekick's moves when you crack a pun?
It gives other people an advantage, I think, or it gives other people hot points. That's one.
Okay.
So with this,
give advantages always a good thing.
yeah,
Like it's so good.
In a way that Macaw has that now with the Zygodactyl. And I love this. I added this at the end. So you have to, once per session you hold someone's hand, they roll with advantage, and then you have to tell them what you admire about them.
Yes, I love that stinger. That is going to feel so heartwarming in the moment. So I guess what I'm asking is the macaw trying to sway a crowd to action, or are you trying to inspire your allies to action? Because if you're inspiring your allies, advantage, easygoing, easy solution. But you already got that hold their hand to get advantage. So
yeah, I did something a little different with the tip the scales. With the manatee is come together. You can spend a hot point to increase your allies' hot points by 2 in a critical moment. Tell them what you've collectively learned this episode. And then the little flavor text is there are safety in numbers, and no one is at the edge of the herd under the manatee's watch. Which just sort of makes me cry a little bit. Just gonna, they're really welling up there.
I love it, and I love how it pulls into that aim. So in that mind, then maybe
you inspired me, Greg.
Maybe I need to pull my tip the scales to be closer to the macaw's aim, which is to prove their worthiness. So when there's my thinking noises, River. Not alone. Yeah, when you
I like this move. I want it to work.
Yeah. maybe when you act
succeeding at this is going to like kind of fulfill your aim, right? Like this shows you were worthy, you were able to inspire people, they followed you. That's validating. So you don't necessarily need to have one of each of these moves if there's something you feel is really, really strongly. But I'm almost thinking more along the lines of attempt the extraordinary. Like you can inspire these people to do something better than anybody else could. Uh, so that I guess that could be tip the scales if we're just going to give you some sort of advantage on that. I'm also thinking of like scale, right? Like you can achieve a larger scale of an effect because you have a group of people who are helping you out with that.
So is it like a chopper in Apocalypse World? Like you can lean on a group of people to appear, or you can narrate that a group of people are there.
Engaging with like the local community, and inspiring them to
Do you
help you
know
out.
what I think would be good here, actually? This would
Mhm.
require like a sort of a rewriting of the Zygodactyl. Uh, but I was thinking if somebody doesn't get a full success,
Mhm.
you can um, give them inspiration, and they can then they will then treat it as the next level up. So, or have it treated automatically as a full success, even if it was a fail. And this could also be used to inspire NPCs to do something that they would otherwise never be able to do. So that sort of like almost promote them to a player character for a moment.
I like that. I like that I can assist somebody else's. I think Zygodactyl still holds true um, as it is, but I like tipping the scales that you can basically help somebody. I can boost theirs, um, and then they have to tell me why I belong in the group.
Hmm. Yeah.
Masks.
Masks. I mean, if we're talking about teenagers, there's a lot of feels.
Yeah, I was also thinking this might be an interesting time to sort of explore what that all coming together moment looks like, because having certain abilities tied to character class that affect that particular moment
Hmm.
might also be inspirational. I'm going to go with that. You can improve someone's test result by one, um, maybe once per session, twice per session, whatever, if they tell you why you belong in the group.
That's beautiful. I really like it.
Anyone know what a group of parrots is called offhand? Group of parrots. What's their plural?
Oh,
A wing.
oh God. I like flock just fine. This is one of those things that like I only enjoy the weird collective nouns when they're really, really weird.
What about a pandemonium of parrots?
Oh God, no.
Okay, we'll go with part of the flock.
Time to go Google more rhino facts.
Yep, exactly.
Need to go call my buddy Zaboomafoo. See what he knows.
Um, changing slightly, just because I'm gonna think about something else for a while, and then I'll come back to the macaw. Have either of you played Free from the Yoke or any of the legacy games?
I have not.
Okay. There's a really interesting move in there when you enter pitched battle. And essentially what you do is everyone uh, contributes tokens to a pull bag. And to contribute a token, you have to risk something. And so then when battle plays out, those tokens are pulled taking turns. And it's a bit of a gambling thing. I'm mostly just really inspired by this move because it was a really cool moment when it happened. And I want to talk about it. But it's this interesting thing where you're adding tokens to a bag, they're drawn, and then depending on your turn, when it's your turn to draw, whether you draw your own or whether you draw someone else's token, different things happen. And the characters who aren't present narrate vignettes. So I'm interested if that something along those lines might work for our invoking the superpowered character. It makes for really
I think that's
moment.
really good. Like if we can build up that pool through, partial successes or full successes, or like in recovery scenes, like there's a lot of options there for building up that.
I wonder if now, Michael, as you are the most recent Captain Planet watcher, are there moments throughout the episode where they sort of foreshadow the eventual releasing of Captain? Because my recollection is it is much like Voltron in that we build up. They get together and they do this battle, and it's going okay, but it's not going great. And then Voltron pulls out the really big sword from space, and bam, it's all over. So
that's not how the redone Voltron was like, but I'm trying to remember how the old one goes. If like Voltron was basically just a MacGuffin,
right.
I don't think
I remember
he was, and I don't think Captain Planet was either.
Yeah, did Captain Planet always like just win the day for all of them, or is it more complicated than that?
So it's kind of funny. I mean, I've only watched the 2 episodes recently, so those are like the specific storylines I have in mind. But usually the kids they go to the site, they see the issue, they struggle to try to fix it, and then they get to a certain point where they're like, "Oh well, I guess we just need Captain Planet now. It's gone too far. We've not succeeded." And then Captain Planet comes and fixes everything. But there was one instance, it was like an oil spill episode, and Captain Planet got covered by oil, and he was like, "Oh, toxic waste! I can't, my powers." So then the kids had to go and save Captain Planet by pouring water on him, but they couldn't use their power rings because
he was already manifest, right, or something.
So I mean, it kind of seems like screw up for a while, and then Captain Planet comes and saves the day. I think it'd be cool if like Captain Climate was a metaphor for like collective action or something like that, and the strength of a group. But
I agree. That's more interesting if it's still because the last thing I want is that the climax of an RPG is when like a character no one has played yet shows up and solves all the problems, and yay! That doesn't feel like I mean, it's true to formula, but it doesn't feel as satisfying.
Right. So let's say like throughout the session, all the characters are succeeding pretty well, right? And it's like they're taking care of the problem. As the GM, should I like say like, "Oh, actually, all of your success was for nothing because the bad guy's plan still works, and now you need to summon Captain Climate to fix it." Like that feels a little cheesy too.
Yeah.
I will say, like part of the way that we handle that in Storm Riders is by being very oblique and upfront. Like the good guys are going to win.
Right.
River, you seem to have a
unique... I just the thought of it.
Lay it out.
When you summon Captain Climate, pick a move from your character sheet that you haven't taken yet. and grant that to Captain Climate. We'll just say Captain Climate is a her, because sure. But this way you get to bring in moves you don't otherwise get to bring in. And it also, I don't know, it could be really fun to like, if like you're the Rhino and you don't want to take wrecking, you can always give that to Captain Climate. It's a part of your power you haven't claimed yet, and so you can give it to her. I don't know. That's a thought.
I like it. I'm
It might
wondering what
take
happens if you've
some,
used all the power, all of your abilities up to that point. Do you get to?
I don't know. Has anybody got all of their abilities in your games, Michael?
I mean, I've mostly run one shots.
Right, exactly. Or we can say,
So
if they have taken all of their moves, they can, they can impart any of their moves.
I
Or we
like
can
the
say, go ahead.
I was thinking like specific moves, like thick skin, right? Like, are we
Mhm.
going to give Captain Climate? Is she going to have a hot point pool? I thought she would be something.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's cool to have her be more like a shared character that everyone.
Right. If
That's
we do want to make this more of a multi-session play, we could just start Captain Climate with like uh, a D3 in hot points, and in order to recover Captain Climate, we need to have like a refresh scene with her.
Or that could maybe be tied into like that struggle throughout the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe we need to reach a HP threshold for her to be able to be summoned. Or
Yeah, we could always just use our hot points to summon her.
and here's a question too: how do you all feel? Does Captain Climate need to be summoned every episode?
Nope.
Are we cool with like you did it?
I think that also, like, if you're doing the long game, like, it makes sense for Captain Climate to become less and less of a focus, and the Climateers to be more and more of a focus.
I think she should still show up in every PSA. I think that's a good
Oh,
way
absolutely.
of introducing her character earlier, just requiring her to be present.
Yes. Yes, 100%.
Very cool. I like the idea of I want to say PSN. Yeah. We'll
I'm just asserting that Captain Climate is a woman now. I'm just
There's got to be
just
somebody I can.
freaking doing it, which is just making me her played by Carol Danvers in my mind. But
Yes.
anyway.
I got to pay somebody to draw like gender swapped Captain Climate. That's
Let me have this internet.
She still has to have a mullet. She still has to have a mullet.
Or no, the mohawk is today's modern reinvention of the odd long haircut. Says me, right now.
she's like Blue Storm.
Have we decided on our meta narrative, or whether we're doing audience members? I really do love audience members.
But yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that.
I don't want to scatterbrain ourselves too much, because I think we're really hitting these classes really well.
I have a really interesting thought on the manatees. If we want to come back to that, I will stop highlighting it now. Sensitive side, rename your lowest stat. When you roll with the stat, gain a hot point. Manatees are charismatic creatures, but they are slow and easily harmed by careless action. And I've apparently killed both of you. Awesome.
Renaming a stat is an amazing ability. I love that.
Yeah, I needed that for some reason.
thinking about these refresh scenes, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, like, one idea, just to throw it out there. We might change it up where instead of you having an audience of people watching the show, you have a city, and like refresh scenes would be like seeing ways that that city is like becoming more environmentally conscious, I guess, based on the actions in the show.
I like that idea. Like, there's a citizen who
Yeah, citizens instead of audience members. That's interesting.
we could even go really like modern with that one though, is we could have it be like YouTube shorts or tweets, or like it can be something that's like completely out of the Storm Riders narrative, but or we could not. It seems kind of weird at this point.
Like graffiti protests, like things that you might not otherwise show in the show. Like the Captain Climate Gang, like of anti of climate justice or whatever. That'd be interesting. I don't know.
And there's the We Are All Robin comic book series. It's like we are all Climateers. Well, that's actually one of the things of the Planeteers. Is we're the Planeteers. You can be one too.
Right. The power is yours.
The power is yours.
So, yeah, that's an interesting idea.
So, something that I found interesting on the TV Tropes website was that in their analysis of it, they very purposefully portrayed the villains in Captain Planet as very obtuse, very over the top villains, but they did not engage in the more gray area. Like the villains would be profit motivated, but they would be overtly way too profit motivated before kids could like realize that, like, hey, my parents work for a company and I think they might be doing things that are a little more profit motivated. So could we explicitly say that the citizens have to be, that your meta narrative, your refreshing, has to be adults reconciling their ways? I don't know. I do like a town sort of fixing their stuff, and people actively doing that as a refresh scene.
But I also like the idea of just PSAs, and that kind of
You
overlaps
always
with that a little
every
bit.
refresh scene is a PSA. I like that.
Ooh, a call to action.
I need to watch all those redubbed G.I. Joe ones.
Oh God, no, 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 no. Those are so weird.
So I edited the macaw to be words. You can always sway an audience to your side when narrating the actions of a crowd. Roll plus heart, because that gives them an ability to actually narrate the actions of a crowd. Does that work?
That makes sense to me. I guess I would always think about, like, you can always sway an audience to your side.
Does that sound too much?
I guess it depends on the audience, like if it's the minions, do we necessarily just want to sway them? You can attempt to, but
Right.
I like
That's That's also why I have like the mighty good grub thing. It's like, you have to be the one extending a hand.
I definitely like giving you narrative control of the crowd and their
Mm-hmm.
actions. But that trigger, that condition, I think we want to make it more. Yeah. Or you could say something like, if you can sway an audience to your side, you narrate their actions. Maybe something like that. I'm figuring out a way to give the rhino a move based on their symbiotic relationship with oxpeckers. So, rhino fact. Rhinos have a host of ectoparasites on their hides that birds eat, keeping the rhino free of parasites. The oxpeckers can also raise the alarm, warning the rhino if any danger is about. So I was thinking this might be related to like state of fact, like having some sort of danger sense, but
Yeah, I like that.
maybe like in a friendship way.
Well, you could just be super in tune with the animals that are around.
The literal birds.
Yeah, exactly. That this is the softer side of the rhino is that animals aren't scared of you. That most of them, like most small animals, just sort of like you're sort of like a Disney princess to them, and you being in tune with their psyche means that you can always sense when danger is coming when they're around. There's actually a bunch of species of monkey in the Amazon that have calls that are distinct for like an aerial predator versus like a jaguar or something like that. And they actually, even though they only speak their own calls, they seem to know each other's calls. Wild, right?
That's pretty neat.
It's
And
like I really hope I wasn't muted for that.
no, that was cool. And I really love that Disney princess image. That it was a great addition. I just have to see how I want to word this.
Did you have any thoughts on an aim for the Pangolin River?
I have not.
I think like get to the truth or something would be an interesting aim, either for the ferret or the pangolin. I think it works for both.
I think it's really fun if it's get to the truth for the pangolin and not the ferret.
Okay. I
I kind
imagine
of want
like
the ferret to be about the ferret to be more about like success, and the pangolin to be more about the truth, even if
imagine
it
the
means
pangolin
taking it on the
is
chin.
pangolin's like the school newspaper kid. They're gonna be a reporter if they're not already.
Absolutely. So how about this for ferreted out? Instead of I rewrote it so that it says you can spend every fresh scene working with your citizen to uncover something that villains have worked hard to conceal. So you're using your citizen's background, like in the game itself. Would that be cool if we're gonna go with like the citizens are like, I don't know. Is that weird?
So are the citizens reoccurring characters in every PSA?
They could be.
So tell me more, real quick, Greg,
Hmm.
about what you love about audience members in Storm Riders. Because I don't
Um,
want to lose that. Like,
yeah, what I love about audience members and Storm Riders is it allows the player to it's a moment of ultimate control over narrative, and it's a really good way to reincorporate previous events, um, and sort of put those back into the narrative space real quickly before going forward. So, like, an example was, and also it gives the character you're playing something to drive towards. I played a robot once, and my audience member was a little girl who was dreaming of being an astronaut, and so her dreams of being an astronaut and the robots like many gadgets that he constantly was deploying, um, were sort of the tie together. So it was a way to I'm not articulating this very well, but
well, I'm
it was
definitely hearing you. I'm hearing you.
yeah. So it was always a fun moment when I got to go to my audience member and reflect on the actions of my character in another context. I guess that's the key of it. It's fun to switch frame, but reflect on what just happened in another context. That's what I love about the audience members. You can take the narrative we're having over here and then take some little bit of it, throw it in a different frame, see that for a second, and then go back. It is a refresh. It's a refresh as a player to have that swap in narrative. So I think the PSA is if we're doing a PSA about what just happened in the episode, and then we're going back, um, if the characters are completely if we're locked at Captain Climate, she's always there. Um, I think that's enough of a frame swap to provide some separation. I'm just interested. I do love the stating of fact and putting that in that it's almost to tweak the sheet in a way of giving a particular class more control over those PSAs. I think that's interesting. And I like the idea that a PSA could actually give a character information about what the villains are doing.
I always want to tweak the downtime scenes or the refresh scenes and everything because I don't know. I always have like a huge problem like convincing my table to do them. My table always rides their Lady Blackbird characters within an inch of their lives. They always are like, well, my Storm Rider's character only has a single hot point left. I guess I can't do anything for the rest of the session. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could share with us some of your experience with refresh scenes. I know you mentioned that the kids you played with had some difficulty maybe juggling those two frames or mindsets, but
Oh, absolutely. Like one of the times I had a kid at the table who wanted to like have jeez. He wanted to use himself as the audience member, which is interesting, except for basically he was playing a character who's all about shenanigans and like kind of his focus was his focus going into the game was to embarrass or annoy his brother. So so making him out of character his in character fan would mean that he would become stronger by focusing on antics that annoyed his brother. And so I had them write each other's audience member because what the heck? Another one of my players decided to have her cat as the audience member, which was really strange.
Well, I was thinking if there were ways that we could lean into those expectations and desires and enable them, but that's a bit of a challenge to try to do that.
Yeah, when your aim is to annoy somebody else at the table, it's kind of.
Yeah, that's not super fun for everybody involved. Okay. So, but we like the recurring audience member. We like them being a character, a person who we can touch base back with occasionally, has a bit of consistency. Um, but we like this kind of interesting ferret move. The realm of the audience is kind of so open and vague. Being able to
Mhm.
tie that back into the narrative is a really interesting idea, and I think it kind
Yeah,
of
and
reinforces that the strength
yeah,
there.
and I wanted to have the limitation not be of like hot points, like it is with the redeemed in Codex Childhood, but to have it be a limitation based on sharing the screen time,
Sure.
which isn't, I don't know, which is part of the reason that I want to tweak like refresh scenes, is because I want to try to use them as a bit of load balancing or scene balance, screen time balancing, something like that. Some words.
So, how about you just describe for us like an instance of someone using ferret it out? Just like go ahead and give us an example, because I'm trying to think of what this would look like at the table.
Right. So
So if you could help me visualize that, that would be awesome.
right. So I definitely imagine it as one of these enabling moves that it gives you the fictional positioning to really do something about a problem or a roadblock or something like that. So I imagine it working on screen that the ferret has to split away from the party for a little bit. That's how I originally envisioned it. Like they would spend some, they would like skip a scene and then come back with like a brief like vignette on how they discovered these things. Uh, but I don't know that that's taking too much screen time from that character. It also doesn't really gel with like the main characters thing that you have, like the episode's main character that shows up in Storm Riders. Um, and the other idea I had was like, yeah, you do the PSA, and by interacting with the citizen, you gain some insight for when you come back. But that's just like, I don't know, if we want to have the citizens be like an in-universe thing, like a resource that the team could call on. That's one thing, but yeah, I don't know.
I could see
It's
you.
squishy.
Yeah, you could squish this for the ferret, but I feel like it would be something that would be very playbook defining for the ferret. And I think
Yes.
that it would turn them from an audience member into a sidekick, is what I'm
Right.
seeing in my mind. Like they have almost looking like, was it Ron Possible from Kim Possible? You know, like she's like the super spy, but he's like kind of a normal kid who screws around and stuff. But like having or who's that character? Like your Alfred or your like
Mm-hmm.
the lady who helps Spider-Man, I think.
There's
Somebody with
there's
a
always an
computer.
ally for Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and then they frequently die
Oh, well, yeah.
or get cloned and then die.
They do have their
Uh,
clones.
God, what was I saying? Also, what I really wanted to have for the ferret was to give someone who's more introverted at the table a way to sort of bow out a little bit if they get overwhelmed, and then have a reason to come back and shine. So that was the
Oh.
sort of like skip a scene and then come back with a vignette of how you were able to do that.
So you wouldn't necessarily narrate the refresh scene, or would you, as the ferret?
Yeah, for doing the refresh thing, then it would be like you and the citizen or you and the audience member or whatever. But if we want to do the skip a scene to come back with an insight thing, that would be there in game, really, for people who get overwhelmed at the table very easily but still want to contribute.
I would love to support those people.
Okay, so I'm going to do the skip a scene thing. I'm just going to switch. Can I just revert my own? Ah, jeez. It's time to pull up the history feature.
Oh yeah, the revisions.
Can I recover what I originally wrote? Doesn't look like it.
Can you Control Z it back, or?
I think if I Control Z it, it's going to be everybody's things. So yeah, just let me. Yeah, just y'all carry on for a second while I find the edit. It's in here somewhere. Oh, man. It is not in here. Actually, is it? Can you show me that edit? All right, whatever.
What would you folks think would be more interesting for the rhino? Something dealing with their excellent sense of hearing and smell, or something to do with their love of mud? Because I could see there's being something like getting your hands dirty could be a type of move, where if you do that, if you soil your clothing somehow.
That makes sense for your taking direct action aim as well.
Yes.
Getting your heads dirty.
I like that. Or it could be like, hey, you're slightly better at hearing things. Here's a +1. Which could give the rhino a little bit more like of a but you can already have animals warn you of danger, so I think I'll do something mud related. Yeah, get your hands dirty.
Is venue swapping something they do a lot in Captain Planet or whatever? With like do they do a lot of like world traveling kind of episodes?
Oh yeah.
See,
they
I remember
go to like Africa, South America, like Madagascar, like all over the place.
in one episode, right?
Not in, but no, there did be like one location or one area per episode. If they were in like a city, they could go out to the factory or, to some apartments or whatever. But if they were in like South America, they could be in the jungle or on a riverboat or like on a boat navigating the river or in a recently cleared field. Like,
I asked because I'm thinking the pangolin is pangolin facts. It's trafficked a lot. So I'm thinking that like sort of an I have been everywhere kind of move for the pangolin, either like a local contact or child of the world. You've traveled around a lot, name a contact for whatever country you're in and how they might be able to aid you and then
that would be fun.
Says, GM says what they're going to ask for in return.
Yeah, name a contact. The GM will tell you what they want in return. Is so good. I also just want to have the flavor text to be that the pangolin used to have a different power, but well, being forced to travel the world changed them. Because that's not a tearjerker at all either. I just wanna hurt me plenty. It could also be fun if this like replaced the if you're like the focus character, if this could replace the villain's monologue. It's you coming in, it's you're the person in the team that the locals come up to and say, we've had this problem, that problem. Like, I don't know. It's a little tropey, but it's a
I like the tweaking the sheet thing to be something to do with the villainous monologue, or something to do with the because you begin by naming a character and what they need to learn this episode, right? That's the Storm Riders-esque procedure. So I'm wondering if I keep thinking about that.
I love the happy in the mud move. Take one forward when you get your hands dirty, so your clothes, wait through a mud puddle, whatever.
Yeah. Do you think that using terminology like take +1 forward is familiar enough?
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
People just need to remember that they have it. That's like the biggest problem. That's where I think, actually, I'm going to say this. If we're going to do advantage, we should do advantage. If we're going to do +1 forward, we should do +1 forward. And not mix them.
So we already have pluses from your attributes. So do advantage instead of
I would say
+1
do
forward.
advantage, especially because that allows the GM to like keep a separate color die around. It's like, well, here's your advantage die.
Here's your mud die.
Exactly. Okay. But that's just from me listening to +1 forward a lot, and like even like Rich and Rach talk about how they frequently forget that they have a +1 forward on their action because they don't have like a physical reminder of it in front of them.
Okay. And if you're already doing math, you don't want to add extra variables onto that.
Yeah, so, you're used to only adding in one spot, like aside from like in D&D, when you're like, it's +1 from my stat. It's like plus this for my stat, plus this for my equipment, plus this for my feats, plus this for somebody helping me. Like, oh dear.
There goes my pop filter. Sorry, Greg, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I just had a thought for tweak the sheet. So part of the Storm Riders formula is that there is a standards and practices kind of thing. And anytime your characters begin to exceed standards and practices, you have to narrate a scene with standards and practices showing up and being, whoa, we can't do that. I'm interested if with the pangolin being the character whose aim is to reveal the truth of the matter, if they could in some way flip that on its head whenever standards and practices would interfere, the pangolin instead cuts a PSA.
That reminds me of like that one Worldwide Wrestling character who's like, I'm going to tell you how it really is, or whatever.
Right? Yes, the anti-hero. Whenever you speak truth to power.
Yes.
Not that I usually play the anti-hero or anything, but
Yes, that's great. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I mean,
in some ways,
yeah.
you're the creator, so it is in some ways standards and practices a way of incorporating a safety tool, because in that way I don't want to mess with it.
Well, it sort of is, and I see where you're coming from with wanting to
So maybe it becomes a
preserve
PSA
that.
bonus when you include someone else in your PSA. Or
No, I like that. I like the idea that you can cut to a PSA. This is so they did something like this in Freakazoid, actually, where they were going to do something that they wouldn't be able to do on television. They would switch scenes completely where Freakazoid would talk to the audience directly, and then they'd switch back to after the thing. So you could have the PSA take the place of something that they wouldn't otherwise be able to show.
I love Freakazoid.
Yeah, that's it. I think I just found a way to buy Michael into this, but
Well, no, I'm trying to think of a way that we can. I love that fiddling with the fourth wall kind of thing.
yeah,
But I don't
Yes.
want to do it in a way that necessarily would violate that safety rule
right.
or safety tool idea.
So
Right, that's why I said it'd be fun to have it.
Yeah.
You still skip the content, but
Almost like drawing a veil over it instead of
yeah,
it being
and
a
you
hard
get to
line, right?
exactly, and you get to still achieve what you wanted, with the limits of the safety of the table. But yeah, that's what sort of you were looking for, right, Greg?
yeah, that's I don't want
A way
to
to like bend the BS&P instead of just breaking it.
exactly. I want to sort of have the pangolin be able to do that fourth wall breaking direct to the audience kind of thing, in a similar way to what we're going with the ferret too.
Yeah, I still want to have that talking directly to the audience thing like show up in one of the characters, because we changed how ferreted out works.
So maybe when the pangolin breaks the fourth wall, And it's interesting because all of these powers can be given to Captain Climate, and she could use them in her scene.
Yes.
So, I guess I'd ask, which standards and practices we would want to enable the pangolin to circumvent.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's things like the good guys can't win, like you can't use drugs.
Yeah, the bad guys
intimacy is restricted. I guess I'm wondering how the pangolin could leverage that outside of violence.
Right.
Which
And
is
that's
cool.
It's not what the pangolin really is about. It's about finding the truth about it. It's like making sure that the audience sees the truth of the matter.
You'd call out a sponsor, maybe.
Is it as simple as when the pangolin names a real life polluter?
Ooh.
Legit
yes.
calls out a real life an environment, some form of.
I'm looking at you, Exxon.
It's supposed to be sort of an abstracted thing, right? It's supposed to be kid friendly, blah blah blah. But when the pangolin specifically mentions the X, this is just like the Exxon Valdez.
That's when the corporate's coming whoa, what'd you say?
Whoa. Yeah. Do we like that? So when the pangolin specifically mentions a real life either environmental disaster or a specific polluter, it is that anti-hero speak truth to power kind of move, but it enables that, instead of just being Oil Corp when they specifically mention Shell, that becomes what they do to get a bonus.
I think that'll be very, very fun because it'll give the players a chance to just vent a little bit.
All right, I'm gonna go with that.
Something about calling out such and such by name, I think, would kind of help to line that up. Wow, folks, we're really knocking these playbooks out. I was expecting like we would have 3 maybe by the end, or like 2.5. We're filling out a full 5. Greg, I really liked your idea about having the focus be a question that's posed to the class as a way to flesh out your backstory. I see we have this one here for the pangolin. You found your focus somewhere special to you. Where was it? I kind of like that. In addition to the favorite grandparent, so I'm thinking about how I can apply that for some of these other classes. Definitely the rhino for sure.
So what I was going with the macaw was that their aim is to prove their worthiness, and so I went for sort of a familial thing. The penguin's searching for truth, so I thought it'd be interesting if they found it. Would the rhino have taken it from someone, or would the rhino is something direct, right? Something to take direct action, heedless of consequences, or I don't know. That's my thought. They took it, or they.
I was also thinking, could it maybe tie into like the rhino's horn, and how that's like a precious object that's sort of like.
Oh, you made your own.
Hunted.
You made
I'd
your
rather
own focus?
not, but I do like the idea of the rhino making their own focus, like especially because so much about this is like I think it's a good counterbalance to Wrecking Ball. Actually, is if they make their own focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had an idea for the ferret's focus, which is your focus was considered trash by another. Where did you find it? What was broken? So it makes it less like an elemental ring and more like, hey, yeah, this is something that you can channel your granted power through. What's that?
It's recycling it. They're reusing it.
Exactly. Oh, it's super on brand.
It's super on brand. So we need one for the manatee.
I do not have any good ideas for this for the manatee.
Them is to reduce harm. I mean, it could have been a gift. In some ways, the macaws is a gift too, but it's like a familial gift.
Guys, what if the manatee was given their focus through somebody else in the party?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we have to do that.
And is it like a global thing that when you describe your focus, you say what element of nature it controls?
Yes.
Is that sort of just what we've been all playing with? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so, and their powers. Are we going with when they invoke Captain Climate, they lose their ability to do those powers? Do those
absolutely
just become okay?
Because it's them projecting their ability into this.
It's their collective action. Okay, now I'm just, for my own amusement, going to create a Captain Climate. And she's happier in the mud.
I mean,
And
I dig it.
she has a renamed different stat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wonder how like that all like I don't know how that would work for in play, but that's fun.
So I for the focus for the rhino, I said you
Uh-huh.
crafted your focus with your own hands. I'm trying to figure out the best wording for this. Um, the sort of question I would pose is who inspired its form. Initially, I had like who was your muse, but that seemed a little not perfect. So I went with
What in nature inspired its form,
oh,
perhaps?
that could be it. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I wanted to tie it to another person or like
Or who taught you to
location,
craft it?
right?
Um,
Who taught you to craft it is a good one.
I like keeping it sort of. I mean, and this is the person who came up with the pangolin, finding it in its place. But I like keeping it sort of people oriented. I like particularly the ferrets one, that it was a piece of trash from somebody else.
Yeah, and the manatees is really good too.
That's I'm so like the manatee is just like all the feels.
Yeah, I love them.
I think we made 5 Captain Planet Heart characters. Um, I don't think any of them are fire, wind, earth, or water. But
Oh, I think the rhino is very earthy. I think the manatee can also be very water, air, that sort of thing.
yeah, I think we kept pretty well to keeping it. You could do the pangolin with fire.
You could easily do the
Yeah.
pangolin with fire. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. You get into Pokemon territory there. Pangolin with fire. um. Okay. Yeah, I like you crafted with your own hand. What? I that works with me. I mean
That's again very like self-focused though, and I like
it
the
is.
interpersonal or
Who gave you the materials to make it?
yeah.
Or
Do we want to say the materials or who taught you the skills, who passed the
I like the
skills?
who taught you. Yeah, because it could be something like, oh, it's my shop teacher, or it could be something like, actually, my little brother learned how to do this and shared the skill with me, or it could be like, this is my great great grandpappy's
Mhm.
like whittling technique, and so here it is.
My favorite YouTuber. Cool. So scrolling through. Could use a couple more moves for the ferret.
Mm-hmm.
time to learn more about ferrets.
You're right.
Well, ferrets are ferrets. There he is. Ferret facts. Aren't they? Oh, they're not nocturnal. Never mind.
Yeah, they're
Um,
crepuscular.
Are they like
are they community?
communal?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Not terribly.
No. Okay. Oh.
Oh, but they're so cute. Oh,
Black-footed ferrets almost exclusively eat prairie dogs.
There. Yeah. We're not a super big fan of them, but you know. But
they're very fast.
they are very fast.
Since they're true recyclers, but in sort of like a dark way. I ate the prairie dogs and then recycled their tunnels. Yay.
Yeah. That's sort of where I got the like discarded thing because they'll also just you
I like
know
aim to win. I like that a lot. So how can we lean into that with the ferret? Without stepping a little bit on the rhino, because the rhino is heedless and the ferret desires the win. Those are different, but you know, convergent. I just found a video of a ferret jumping into a trash can.
I'm being paralyzed by cute ferrets
Anyway,
and looking into the facts.
I'm going to rewatch that later.
A group of ferrets is called a business. They do have a light musky odor and scent glands, which they can release a scent as a defense.
Could the ferrets attempt the extraordinary? Something along the lines of like they get to rename the terms of what victory looks like.
That would be fun,
particularly for that climactic scene, or when Captain Climate is summoned.
It could maybe be something too, like villains or minions or whoever are more susceptible to. I just saw Leandra's comment. Any character can be a heart character if you try hard enough. Yeah, try hard, believe in yourself.
Heart is a stat, so
I was maybe
it is a straight up stat. So
could a ferret like incite a villain into like doing a contest or some sort of a challenge with them?
A taunt kind of move.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's sort of borrowing from its distant cousin, the mongoose. But yeah, you can sort of just like make yourself the biggest threat in the room.
Draw the squared circle kind of thing.
Yeah.
What were you were working on something there, River, with you can spend HP to gain an advantage?
Pick a passion.
This is just sort of like borrowing from like that. It's like, well, we can do a little fiery here. It's like pick an environmental passion. You can spend a hot point to gain advantage when you defend this.
So like if they're really big on recycling, like if you can then recycle something in your environment to like help you overcome this challenge, you're going to get an advantage with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you're really big on like reducing fossil fuels, get carbon reduction, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so that way, yeah, you know, on your focus episode, you could have the villain's monologue be about this, and you can basically try to see if you can get the ferret to redline through the entire episode, like basically running permanently at like 1 or 2 hot points just because they're just trying their damnedest.
For the GM, this is a great move to have because it can give you like direction where to put the story, because it's pretty free form for the GM. Like how would you base an adventure around this, right?
Right.
Um,
But I also feel like we fell off the track a little bit because Greg, you were working on something for Attempt the Extraordinary.
Sorry, yeah, just in my head, I was thinking something along the lines that taunting move you were talking about with
Yeah.
pulling the danger to you, because only the ferret can win it, or a taunt, drawing the squared circle kind of thing.
if we're looking too at the ferret as being a playbook that an introverted player might
Could be
gravitate
drawn to,
towards,
yeah.
being the distraction can sometimes actually help, because you can say, I'll be the distraction, you guys go and do XYZ, and you don't necessarily have to contribute to that. Maybe, I don't know.
I like that as when you serve as the distraction.
What did I do for the? We could do something like the manatee. Actually, what I wanted to do something for Attempt the Extraordinary was Out of Their Element, where you take something of the villains and reverse it on them. It'd be interesting if the during the showdown scene, the ferret could just declare that one of the villains' machines or one of their plans is like falling apart on them, sort of like take their spirit out of it, or they can try to surreptitiously sabotage it. Because it's different from like breaking and wrecking. That's
right. Yeah.
That also goes around to like,
you can roll plus mind to turn the mechanics of villainy against the big bad.
That'd be an interesting, like, kind of counterpart then to my house. So one move would be you have an environmental passion, and that's what you leverage in order to succeed. And then one move would be like turning these natural disaster kind of things against the people who wield them. I'm trying to visualize what that would look like in play, right? Like,
yeah,
you grab the hose that the oil's coming out of and turn it back on them. Is that what we would see? Or you the toxic sludge like erodes the villain's vehicle out from underneath them?
yeah, that would be an interesting one. Is like, you can have this could be a fun thing to like play with the GM too. Is like when the bad guy attempts to pull a fast one or attempts to like escape the heroes, you can declare that you've already sabotaged it. It's sort of like, and you could do sort of something like explain how, like, you can sort of like change the additional threat that the bad guy has by breaking by like making it sure that one of their toys doesn't work or isn't accessible, but then they have to rely on like something else. I don't know. It's weird. That maybe doesn't make any sense.
I see where you're coming from. I can't help but like visualize each of these characters as animals. So like I was just imagining like the villain being like pushing the big red button, and it's like, what's happening? And then you just see the ferret like chewing on this wire, like um. But I see where you're coming from, but I don't know. Yeah, because it's like I like this idea we've mentioned. The ferret's aim is to win, and that's really exciting and interesting. And they might be the one who's willing to take slightly more underhanded tactics in order to achieve. Like the Reiner will still go in heedless of consequence, but they're trying to, maybe be a bit more honorable, at least in their mind. Whereas the ferret's like, I'm willing to knock over this can of toxic sludge in order to like halt the villain's escape or something. Is that
Oh, we
is
could give
that
them an
legit?
additional. We could give them an additional thing, like they can use it to pick up something of the villains to use against them later, which would give either
Oh,
them or somebody else an advantage during the climax.
I like that a lot.
That's a
They
lot of
can,
fun.
yeah,
we did it.
they pick something up early in the scene, and
Hmm.
yeah, and that in a
It could
way
be the
made that
sludge thing.
more.
It could be like the spare tire from their getaway vehicle. Like it could be something really wacky, but
I think that also keeps to our more passive player thought with the
hmm
ferret. It's simple to be like, and I'm picking that up earlier in the scene so that I can use it later just for advantage. And as long as you can
hmm
creatively reuse something, yeah.
hmm All right. That's yes. That took a lot of working around, but I'm really happy with the form that it is currently in.
So I don't. I'm thinking about a good word name, and I want to avoid like hoarding as a title for a move name.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about like a ferret and like they're like a domesticated ferret in their
I
cage.
can use that.
I can use that's a good one.
Um, or ferret
Di-
away. To
we
ferret away something means to stash it. Um,
we have ferreted out.
Yeah, I think that
ferret
we're
up,
I think we're
ferret
only
away.
I think we're only due one of those
Ferreted up.
for per character sheet. I think
That's
you
probably why.
could do.
Let's see, like diamond in the rough or something, or needle in a no, not needle in a haystack, but like
I've got just the thing.
Oh,
Um, or
oh, that was it. I thought you were about to tell us the thing you just had, but that
I've
was
got
the
just the
thing.
thing. But that doesn't imply the whole that they took something, um, and then you're using it back on them, right? That's the whole idea of the move. Is they get to pick something early on in the adventure and then reuse it at the end.
you could
My house, I like it.
you can have it be something like, well, at least let's write the text of it, and then we can, and
Yeah.
while we're doing that, we can think of the name because I don't want the mechanics of you can pick up something important from the villain to grant you or an ally advantage later in the episode. Like I do want to keep that. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
I was like, everyone is crowding around the line here, trying to decide. So yeah, you can. Ugh, and I then my writer's block hit me like a ton of bricks. Passing the baton.
So you can pick up or a discarded or broken item from the from the villain or their henchman.
Yeah.
Or from the villain's arsenal. I like that. The villain directly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that works out really well.
Okay, fine. Nowadays, I don't have an attempt the extraordinary.
Trash is treasure.
What?
Or I mean recycle.
Yeah, I was thinking like we could do something silly like upcycle, but I hate that term.
Upcycle.
We should do trash to treasure. I think
That
that's
belongs in a compost bin.
I'm cool with trash to treasure or recycle.
Yeah.
I do like upcycle, but I don't want to raise anyone's hackles.
trash to treasure. I like trash to treasure. I like how it echoes the focus.
The focus, yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. All right, looking over these classes, I think we've done it. Class-wise. Maybe perfecting the manatee here.
I don't know. That's my nearest thought is attempt the extraordinary, the lecture. You can pull the villain into a PSA scene and convince them that part of their plan will hurt them in the long run. This sort of encourages like some wheels within wheels of the for the GM, but it goes to narratively changing the positioning for the.
I mean, I see the manatee as someone who like relates to people, and I could see them being the one to say like, even though the villain is like evil, in terms of the show's morality, like maybe we can appeal to their greed in some way, and I think that that's one way that people like address like trying to do climate justice or like trying to do environmentalism is to say like, let me lay out why this is bad for you in the long run. Yeah, that's interesting.
I think to some degree that's what I was trying to get to with the pangolin, and I think it works actually a lot better with the manatee. So I like it.
And I love the idea of it being restorative justice. Like you convince them to undo part of the harm that they did. Apparently, we're just going for all the feels here.
The manatee is big feels. Big feels. The sea cow. Okay. Oh, I love manatees. Okay.
Do we need random tables for evil villains and their evil plots?
Yeah,
I think we can just sort of sketch that together whenever. Like, if we have something fun that we want to do, but I am terrible at names.
Yeah, that's fair.
I love the Captain Planet villain names. They're all so great.
They're all so bad.
The original Duke Nukem was actually a Captain Planet villain. Um,
What?
Verminous Scum. Like,
Oh
it's
yes.
so good.
God, I remember Reminisce Scum. What a terrible character. And hilarious.
So I think, I mean, this is a little ambitious and probably beyond my personal knowledge and skill set, but I could see. So I don't know if you guys, if any of you heard about the whole debacle with the Wendy's RPG that came out, right?
Oh
And
God.
everyone was like, "Oh, this is gross. It reeks of like corporate whatever." And then somebody came out with like their own indie game about like taking down these corporations. And one thing I really liked about that game that they made was that they were like, hey, here's like these 5 or 10 bad fast food companies, and here's why they're bad or whatever. Um, and it was just like, we don't necessarily need to name names in Captain Climate, but if it was like, hey, here's like 5 to 10 sources of environmental harm, and then we come up with a funny name for that person. Um, I don't know if radioactive waste is still a big deal, but that's where Duke Nukem came from. Um, so if we could maybe do something similar, have our own knockoff villains.
I just want to have Nancy Nimby or something like that. Where this because not in my backyardism is such a like it's the way that middle class and wealthy people force environmental problems on poorer people. It's like, well, I don't want this power plant in my backyard, but the people who can't come up with the social capital to protect themselves from it then suffer. But that maybe just be a hot button issue for me.
Water rights and all of that. To some degree, I think there's a. I guess we are trying to abstract it to a more comical, or not comical, a more cartoony extreme. Water Baron sounds like robber
Perfect.
baron. Water Baron.
Water Baron is really good. Tip of the hat to um, oh, that's embarrassing. Philvekian.
I shared a link in the comments there to that game I was referencing, aptly titled "Silence Brand." And if you look at page 3, the character creation, it kind of describes these different corporations and why they suck. So,
Oh, is it in the workshop channel?
no, in the YouTube, the comments tab there,
Oh,
the live comments.
deep, 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 deep.
It should be accessible from StreamYard, but
Yeah, I also have to go at like not long after 5. I have a phone interview to do.
ooh, is that 10 minutes from now for you?
Yes, that's 10
Okay,
minutes from now for me.
cool. Well, I mean, I'm really satisfied with what we came together with today. Definitely achieved my goals and more with lining out these 5 classes that people can use for their game of Captain Climate. Um, the only thing I would probably want to nail down is summoning Captain Climate and what that looks like. You think we could do that in 5 minutes? Nail that out and then do outros?
Yeah, of course.
I want to give you time for your interview. I don't want you to miss that.
Yeah, because I've
But
got to study up and stuff. So thank you.
so what are our immediate thoughts on what we'd like to see there? We know
I,
that she
yeah.
can use the unselected powers, maybe.
I definitely think that it could end up being like analysis paralysis, but I think it might be fun. I think it also gives you a good reason not to pick the power that's like gonna make you the biggest badass. Like it gives you a reason not to take Wrecking Ball. But
Sure. And you don't feel too bad if you don't have it at the time. Like, oh, I wish I'd picked Wrecking Ball earlier instead because, well, you can just summon Captain Climate and she'll take care of it. Maybe when you lose hot points, do those go into the Captain Climate pool instead of disappearing forever?
no, that'll make Captain Climate really powerful because you like really enforce the hot point drain.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
that's one of the things I really like about it is that like you have to sort of like go from your front foot to your back foot a lot.
Mm.
I'd be interested in almost like a timer mechanic with Captain Climate.
Yeah, I was thinking about some kind of threshold.
Yeah, she can only be in the scene for so long.
Oh, okay.
It can only be in one scene per episode.
One scene per episode. That's good, and definitely genre emulating.
I mean, we might just say she shows up when your powers combine. Like you just will it to be so, and it can happen.
Yeah, I mean, when you combine your powers, does everyone roll, or is that not?
I don't think it should be a roll.
Yeah.
No.
Do they all have to be in the same physical location?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When your powers combine, describe what that looks like. And
Yeah. So as far as mechanics go, though, she has her own hot point.
Yeah, how do we narrate her actions?
Oh, I think you basically do something like Bluebeard's Bride, where you have one person controlling, and then when it looks like when they do a roll, they move control to a different player.
And maybe that's when she can use those unused moves, is when the person who granted them describes them.
Right.
So like you're holding the ring, so to speak, and you think like, oh, I think it'd be really cool if we saw her use this power. So let me handle the ring over to the person who granted that.
I'm just excited to see Captain Climate put her hand on the macaw's shoulder and like, it's okay.
Yes.
From the that took more brain than I wanted it to. Move control between players on each roll or significant action. She can only use the powers from the controlling player's character sheet. So we could just do it that way. Like she simply just can't use. She just has all of the moves that you have access to, whether you have them or not. But they only.
We can only use it if we pass it around.
Yeah, exactly. So she can use any of your moves. Yeah, I like that. She can use any of your moves, but only the moves from the controlling player's character sheet. So you're encouraged to move her around.
Does she have flat set stats?
Yeah, we can just make her like plussy and give her +1 and everything.
Yeah. I mean,
again, tip of the hat to Rich Rogers.
Yeah, Rich Rogers is going to be super excited to summon Plussy.
Yes.
do each of the players have to spend hot points to generate a pool of hot points for Captain Climate? Like,
I like the idea that she starts with an arbitrary number and then
Okay.
she can gain them with refresh scenes. Just gains one like per refresh scene.
so every refresh scene you have, she gets one more.
Mm-hmm.
So when she's
The more
summoned,
PSAs we cut, she gets more.
And when
yeah,
you fail a roll, she goes down, and when she gets to 0, she can't appear in story outside of the.
can you have a refresh scene while she's summoned?
Sure.
Okay, so you can control how long that goes out, but it also encourages you to have some of those before you bring her out, so that she won't be so fragile right out the gate, huh?
Mm-hmm. I think what the heck did the Planeteers call their base? Well, it was like
Crystal
Gaia's.
Island, I think,
Okay.
because there were crystals there.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna
And
put double bracket hideout.
yeah, I think if this would be fleshed out more for people to use, I would be like some establishing questions you can ask to like, figure out who Gaia is and what technology she's given you and all this stuff. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and so like just quick thinking here, like let's say we were playing Voltron. How would you all feel about this same mechanic in Voltron?
Oh, I mean, I love the idea that you couldn't summon Voltron unless you kept it well maintained by interacting with your audience member. Like, I think that's awesome.
Cool. I'm very
Because
sad.
also, when Voltron takes a beating, it usually goes down for several episodes while everybody licks their wounds and finds other ways around things.
That's a good point.
I don't know. How do you feel, Greg?
No, I like that. I like the idea almost of starting Captain Climate with very few hot points, and then
Yeah.
you have to pull those PSAs as you go to sort of build her up, and then you invoke her at the end and see how it goes.
Yeah, I want to start her with like 1d3 hot points.
Yeah, something low, and then you have to build it up so that she doesn't just get wiped the minute you summon her.
Exactly.
Cool.
It also shows that, like, at least at the start, you're really reliant on her.
And then you become Captain Climate, kid.
Well, yeah, exactly. As you get more badass, you don't necessarily need her as much unless things are really, really gone pear-shaped.
Wow. Well, so my goal, I have no timeline on this, but I'm hoping to take the work we've done here and put it into something shareable. Probably not like a fully illustrated zine or anything like that, but like, hey, if you want to do this kind of game, here's something we made. So I will take this document and do that, probably just giving it a more readable layout. But I'm amazed what the three of us are able to accomplish in this brief span of time.
Thank you.
I love the collaborative experience we had. If I'd give out some stars real quick, I just want to give out a star to the idea for endangered animals. That really took things in an awesome, exciting direction.
Thank you.
And a star just for every character's heart. that was a really cool development too.
Yeah, we definitely sort of found our own. Like, this is definitely our angle. This is who the three of us are.
Yeah. Greg, can I ask you, like, your favorite part of this experience? Like, how you
A
made
big star to River, who
Yeah.
was very meticulously adding in these little flavor text things next to the rest of the classes. We need to
Oh,
get some more of those on the other classes.
yeah, I was very diligent for that with
Yes.
humanity, but I don't have it for like everybody else.
Yeah, I need to get to that with like the pangolin, like the world traveler one. Oh yeah, you see, you already did.
Yes, I did. Something that we talked about as the justification behind it. I did jot them down. So yeah. Uh, I just I'm super grateful that we took the we took on something that was like, like Voltron, like the Power Rangers, like um, Captain Planet for this because it is an area that truly isn't in the original text, and it is also not covered by Jason's supplement. So building just that technology was I feel super important. Even if people don't end up using it, it's there and it's a it's a launching off point. So I'm very, very happy for that. That's a huge star for me. Um, I think also just I really, really appreciated when we would all yield ideas we had to other archetypes when it made more sense. Like people were like, well, I'm really struggling with this. And it's like, I mean, we all had a move like that where we like, oh, I was sort of thinking of this for mine, but it might make more sense here. And it just sort of push it over. And that was really wonderful. That made me really happy. So those are my stars.
Well, this activity exceeded all my expectations, blew them out of the water. I had a wonderful time spending time with you folks. This is an awesome kickoff to GauntletCon 2019. So looking forward to the rest of the events. Thank you all who listened and will listen in the future. I hope that you find some joy from this game and from spending time playing it with friends. So signing off here, ending our broadcast.